Well, good afternoon, and thank you for the invitation. I think the Biden administration is concerned about the situation in eastern Syria, and especially the security vacuum in central Syria, in the Badia, and the possibility that Daesh will use the vacuum to grow stronger. We saw President Biden and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan talk about this. I think also the Biden administration is concerned about the political process in Damascus, but their attention now, I think, is especially about the security and safety of the American forces in eastern Syria. Hmm. We do not know yet. We do not know yet. There is no American embassy in Damascus now, and there is no Syrian embassy in Washington. There are no real contacts between this new government in Damascus, just announced yesterday, and the Americans. And I don't think there are sustained contacts between Washington and the different armed groups in Syria, including the Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, HTS. So I think the Trump administration view of the region is that Iran is a big problem and Iran must be contained. Iran's influence must be limited. I do think Donald Trump is going to try to negotiate with Iran about the nuclear program in Iran. I think Donald Trump will try to find a way to negotiate, but he will also put big pressure on Iran. On the other side, the Trump administration will strongly support Israel. It will support Israel's right to defend itself. It will provide military assistance, and it will provide political support for expansion of Israeli settlements in Gaza and in the West Bank. With respect to Syria, I think Donald Trump wants the American soldiers, the American troops, to come out. He did in his first administration, and the Defense Department and the State Department convinced Trump in 2019 to leave half of the soldiers there. I think now in 2024, the new Trump administration, they will look for ways to bring the troops out while they try to think of a strategy of how to contain Daesh in central and eastern Syria. I hope not, because I think that trying to divide Syria will only cause a new round of the civil war. I think the factions that are in control of Damascus and Aleppo strongly believe in national unity. And so the question to me is how can all Syrians, all of the Syrian communities, find a way to coexist, to respect each other's rights, and to build a common political future? For example, will the next Syria be decentralized or not? You know, HTS had its own autonomous administration in Idlib. The Syrian interim government in Azaz also had autonomy. And of course, the autonomous administration in Qamishli had autonomy. So it's not that there is no experience in Syria with this, it's whether or not they can agree how to apply this experience to all of the country. Well, if it is divided and there is a new civil war, it gives a big opening for foreign powers, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Israel, United Arab Emirates, Iraq, to intervene. And then the competition becomes a regional competition. It's more difficult to end a civil war with big regional competition. And also, the civil war itself would be difficult and dangerous for the Syrian population, which already has suffered so much from the fighting and from the problems of the Assad government. If you mean the foreign forces, the Americans, I think Trump will try to find a way to bring them out. I think he does not want to stay with the American forces in Syria forever. I expect that there will be American conversations with both Syrian Democratic Forces and their leaders, and also with the government of Turkey and probably the government of Iraq. I think we do have interests in Syria, but our biggest interest is Syria as part of a stable and prosperous Middle East region. We would like Syria not to be a problem, for example, with Hezbollah in Lebanon, which causes problems for both Lebanese people and the Israeli population. We would like Syria not to be a central location for a new and strong terrorist movement that would attack not only people in Syria and the Middle East, but attack people around the world in a new campaign of terrorism. We would like Syria to be a country with which the Americans could conduct trade and normal relations. There is for sure a risk of this collision. And I noticed that the Syrian Democratic Forces decided to withdraw from Manbij, and I think this was a good decision. But I think now it is the turn of the forces in control in Damascus to reach out and open a channel of communication, direct communication, between the leaders in Damascus and the Syrian Democratic Forces. And they need to listen to each other. What are their concerns? What are the immediate problems on the ground to solve? And what is the possibility for shared political ideas and shared political goals in the future, in 2025 and 2026? But that has to be a direct conversation, and not only a direct conversation between Syrian Democratic Forces and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham and the Jaish al-Watani al-Suri, the Syrian National Army. It also needs to be a conversation, for example, with the community in Sueda and the communities around Latakia and Christian communities across the country. Syrians need to be talking to other Syrians and respecting the rights of all Syrian citizens. So my strong advice to the Syrian Democratic Forces and to the YPG militia and the PYD political party in Syria is open, direct channels of communication with all of the communities in Syria and with the leaders in Damascus, and ask questions and be ready to listen and also to explain the viewpoints of the communities in the Kurdish regions of Syria, explain the interests, explain the fears and the worries. The fears are genuine. The fears, it's easy to understand why people are afraid. So explain that, talk about it, and ask for reassurances and be ready to make political compromises on all sides. Respect for citizens' rights, respect for politics, respect for the need for mutual concessions to live together and coexist.